If you're watching this, you're probably a biology major and you're asking yourself, what do I do now? This video has a bunch of advice for biology majors based on over 15 years of my experience advising and mentoring students at 3 different universities. Some of the advice is specific to the biology major, and some is general and applies to everyone in college. I hope you find this useful, and if you do, feel free to share it with anyone you know who might be interested too. The first thing to say about a biology major is that biology is enjoyable, and it's associated with a high average income in the future. Not only does the major help you understand how living things work, it can set you up for a really lucrative career. The data shown here is from an NPR Planet Money episode a while back, where they analyzed the average incomes of a bunch of people who got degrees in different subjects. Obviously, there are a ton of majors, so they focused on the 10 best and 10 worst in terms of making money down the road. It's a little hard to see, but basically the top 10 consists of 6 different types of engineering, 2 degrees associated with pharmacology or pharmacy, mathematics or computer science, and what they called health and medical preparatory programs, that's the one with the red box, which is basically a biology degree. Unsurprisingly, the bottom 10 consist of mostly degrees in art, social services, and early childhood education. We can all debate how important these things are for society, but the truth is they don't tend to pay very well. The good news is that a biology major is the second best major in terms of making money for your career. The bad news is that the full story is a little more complicated. This is the same data, but what the same team did here was go back and look at the incomes of people who got a bachelor's degree but did not go on to graduate school or professional school afterwards. Basically, what's the average income with just the bachelor's degree? The top 10 is still full of engineering, pharmacy, math, and computer science, but now biology has dropped all the way down into the bottom 10. The data shows that if you don't go to graduate school or professional school, a biology degree sets you up for the same income that getting an art degree does. This drop in average income is not a problem if you don't care about money, but most of us do care about making a good income. And since the biology degree is not super easy, it would be nice to know that it will pay off. The punchline of this analysis is that you should definitely enjoy the biology major, but your plan in terms of what to do after you graduate should probably be geared towards graduate school or professional school. Of course, you have to do well in the biology major to make it into graduate school or professional school so that you can get the income associated with the left-hand side instead of the income associated with the right-hand side. This is why some of the things I'm going to talk about in this video are a variety of different strategies for how to do well as a college student in general, as well as specifically in the biology major. Okay, first things first, let's think about the mental skills required for success in college. Psychological researchers have identified a ton of psychological traits associated with success, but 2 of these stand out as special. The first is having an attitude of a growth mindset, the idea that your own intelligence can grow and be improved through effort. The second is a psychological trait called grit, which is a label used to describe how resilient you can be when faced with difficult challenges. If you read the psychological literature, there are a bunch of other traits that are also studied, but these are the 2 that seem the most important. The concept of growth mindset describes how people's brains can grow and improve over time. Many people think that mental abilities are fixed or static, that you are smart or are good at math. But the truth is that you become smart or become good at math. For example, nobody is good at a sport until they put in time and practice. Michael Jordan and Jerry Rice were 2 of the best athletes in American team professional sports in the 20th century, but they were also known for practicing longer and harder than anyone else on their team. They weren't born superstars, they grew into superstars with hard work. Our brains are not muscles, but they literally improve the same way. Our intelligence grows from effort, failure, improvement, repeat. Through the process of thinking about difficult things, which will inevitably lead to mistakes, but then figuring out those things and improving our thinking, we grow our minds and intelligences. Obviously, it's true that there are some prodigies and geniuses out there, but the truth is that they're extremely rare, and they're not us, so they're not relevant. What is relevant is that almost anybody can become very good at specific mental tasks when we spend time on those tasks. Studies have shown that individuals who embrace this growth mindset succeed better than those who don't. The ability to push ourselves to keep going in this process of failure and growth is related to the second important trait, grit. Grit describes a person's ability to persevere to achieve a long-term goal. Life presents failures and challenges to all of us. Our responses can include giving up, redoubling our effort, or self-reflection with improvement. It's the last 2 that are the ones that lead to long-term success, and both are important. Just trying harder without thinking about why we failed doesn't work. We will all fail from time to time, especially when we do things that are difficult. But the ability to figure out why we fail, not get discouraged, and then keep giving it our effort is critical to success. Grit also applies to overcoming obstacles and challenges in our personal lives. It's not just coursework that gets in the way, sometimes real life does too. Grit and the growth mindset work together. Grit allows us to keep going when we challenge ourselves in the way that is needed in order for us to grow. Another mental skill, which I personally think is very important, is to stay good at math. Mathematical and scientific thinking is not just a set of courses, it's a skill that helps with everything. And like all skills, it gets good and stays good with practice. Even if you don't like mathematics, you want to keep reading and thinking mathematically so that you can stay good at it. This is because mathematical topics and concepts will show up throughout all of your science classes and even in your professional life afterwards. This doesn't mean that you have to sit down with a workbook full of math problems or keep solving algebra equations instead of doing something interesting, however. There are a bunch of websites that carry interesting articles that talk about things in a quantitative way. Just by reading stories on these websites, you can keep your mathematical and scientific thinking engaged in a way that isn't boring. For example, The Upshot on 538.com do have a lot of articles about politics, but they also have articles about sports and other topics from a mathematical and statistical perspective. The science websites shown are great for reading about scientific advances at a higher level than CNN or some other mass media website will present it. The final site shown, XKCD, is one of the best of several webcomics that often feature interesting and insightful mathematical ideas in a humorous way. Once you've passed your calculus and physics courses, staying connected to sites like these will help keep your brain engaged mathematically, which will absolutely pay off. Most pragmatically, it can pay off when you take one of the standardized tests that we'll talk about later because they all have math sections. Another thing to think about, and many of us don't think about this as much as we should, is to find a good peer group and mentor while in college. The truth about humans is that we all become like the people we hang out with. Peer pressure is real, but it's not some cartoonish scenario where someone offers us drugs or tempts us out of the blue. It describes the natural way in which we all go along with the crowd that we're a part of. So one of the things that's very important to do in college is to find at least one good group of friends that take their academics seriously. This could be a club for biology majors, joining a research lab, or some sort of volunteer position. It doesn't really matter exactly what it is. The key is to surround yourself with a bunch of people that will help encourage you to be a good student instead of encourage you to do tequila shots the night before your big exam. It's also very useful to get more specific advice from a person you can trust, and that means trying to develop a mentor-mentee relationship with a faculty member at your university. Every school and degree has different quirks, so getting to know someone who knows those quirks can be very useful. You should definitely meet with your academic or professional advisors early and often. Who knows what good advice they can give. I have a formal position as an advisor at my university as part of my job as a professor, and I'm constantly letting students know about special programs they qualify for and giving them advice they find extremely useful. But of course, the ones that get the best advice are the ones who book appointments with me or send emails with questions. You want to be proactive about developing these relationships. Another piece of advice that comes from years of experience of seeing how my students succeed or fail is to minimize personal distractions. First is your family. Your family loves you and cares about you, but unless they got a STEM degree themselves, they don't know how much work it is. That means you're going to have to explain to them that sometimes you'll need to study instead of participating in family time. This can be especially challenging if you're a first-generation student because your parents really won't know how much work being a college student is, since their only frame of reference will be high school, which is much easier. But on the bright side, they do care about you, and they want the best for you, so if you can explain it well, they should be able to adjust and help. Second is significant others. They also care about you, but they can create drama and heartbreak. Your education is forever. It's the degree that you will use for the rest of your life to develop your career. Many relationships are not forever, and if you allow them to interfere with your education, that's not a good trade-off. My most successful and happy students have been the ones who either didn't have relationships while a student, or they had partners who were very understanding of school being the number one priority. If your significant other doesn't understand how important your education is to you, that's a serious red flag. Lastly, dead-end jobs. It's easier to say than do, but try to keep a dead-end job from sabotaging your long-term career. Many of us have to make money while in college. I myself had several jobs while a student, Taco Bell and blackjack dealing, for example. But we have to take the long-term view. Once I got qualified to get work as a tutor, I ditched Taco Bell. Obviously, if you have severe economic challenges, you have less flexibility. But if you don't absolutely need the money, then it may be worth it to think about not working, or at least reducing your hours, so you can succeed in college. You don't want to pick up a few extra shifts for a little bit of optional money if that means sabotaging your GPA and compromising your long-term professional options. Another important factor to consider is your mental health. College is a big change from high school and everything that comes before it. When you start school, you lose many of the support systems that you used to. Many of the friends that we make in high school don't come with us to college, and we have to start all over. If you move away to college, it's even more pronounced. You're away from the family support you're used to for your whole life. The teachers that we've developed relationships with are also gone. This new isolation can be hard. Making brand new friends takes time and isn't something that most of us remember having to do. Prior to college, we tended to get placed into groups that we stayed with for much of the day. This constant proximity naturally results in friendships. But in college, the classes are all separate. There's much less of a cohort group that you see in every class every day. The classes themselves have less structure too. Unlike high school, classes rarely meet 5 days a week. There's also less structure in terms of regular assignments to coerce us to stay up with our studying. It's much easier to procrastinate and fall behind in our studies when there's less structure. The loss of friends and imposed structure can be difficult. It's normal to feel stress and depression when starting college, and later too, of course. Again, this is normal. Everyone feels some of this. There is no shame in getting some help. Help can come from many places. You can make an effort to stay connected with friends, family, clergy, and others that know you. Colleges and universities also offer support services that can help. They know what you're going through and have invested significant resources accordingly. Speaking of which, universities have lots of resources for their students. Colleges and universities truly want their students to succeed. Even if you're a cynic and think that the school just sees you as a number, administrators want graduation rates to be high because that's how universities are compared to each other and how the administrators will get their next position. That stress and depression I just mentioned is a known issue. All schools have psychological services of some kind for their students. These are usually free, at least the first visits are, and these counselors know what you're going through and can offer real advice. Academic advisors are a good source of help for figuring out the answers to questions you have about which courses to take or what opportunities are available. In addition to helping my students make schedules, I give career advice and help students plan for graduate and professional school all the time. I know which courses are the tough ones, and I even help guide my students towards the better instructors when more than one person teaches a course. Universities all have financial aid offices and scholarships available for students. These days, you'll probably have to take out loans to pay tuition, but there are lots of grants and other programs available too. Your school will have an office to help you find money. Universities also fund programs like supplemental instruction and tutoring services, where advanced undergraduate students are paid to provide additional academic help to other students. These are subsidized by the school, and the cost to students is usually free or far below the market rate for private tutoring services. These days, virtually every school that has a real campus has a nice gym and a student health service. These aren't just for athletes. Your university status basically comes with a free gym membership, and the gym probably has classes and other activities designed just for students. The Health Services Office will provide preventative medical care and things like the flu vaccine. The university knows that the entire student body does better when they're healthy, so they do put money into these agencies and staff. Universities also realize that their students come from a variety of economic backgrounds. Almost all schools have a work-study program that can provide a campus job. These jobs may not be the most exciting, but since they're on campus, the travel time is zero, and they're very willing to work around an academic schedule, two things not generally true for off-campus jobs. Many schools also have food pantries and even other types of assistance for homeless students. When you join a college or university, you become part of a community that tries to help its students. Don't let pride stop you from getting assistance if you need it. You'll pay them back later by getting a degree and going on to pay taxes or donate money. In addition to the programs that the university runs, there are also tons of student-run organizations at every university and college. There are clubs that can help you make connections and provide the opportunity to explore career options. The Biology Majors Club here at my campus regularly goes on tours of local government agencies and companies that hire graduates. At the department level, most departments also try to organize activities for their students. For example, my biology department here has a welcome night for new students, a seminar series that all students are invited to attend, and occasional gatherings where students can meet faculty in a more casual environment than in the classroom. Lastly, and this is really important, these resources are yours. This isn't charity, this is part of what your tuition and tax money is paying for. You're their student, and it's your right to seek out these services and programs to make the most of your time at your institution. Even though the university has lots of resources and offices, most of your direct experience will be with the teachers of your courses. Years of experience have shown me that many students aren't entirely clear on the types of instructors that a university typically has and the difference between them. Knowing the difference can be important because some of these people are likely to be more knowledgeable or helpful than others. First is professors. This is the term most accurately used for the people who both teach courses and conduct scholarly research. If you're at a large university, these individuals will typically have a research lab where they have their own set of research students helping them conduct research. If you're at a community college or a small non-research institution, this term is used for the full-time permanent teaching faculty. The key thing is that these are the people who are affiliated with the university for the long term. At universities and colleges, these are the people who get tenure and perform sophisticated scientific research. They're also the ones who work their way up to leadership positions over time. They may or may not be the best teachers, but they're the ones who tend to have the most institutional knowledge, authority, and access to campus resources. These are the people who are most likely to know about useful campus programs, have the connections that can help with graduate school, and can write the strongest recommendation letters. If you're looking to do lab research, more about this later, these are the people to seek out. The next category of faculty member is a lecturer. These individuals are hired purely to teach courses and not for their current scholarly activity. Some of them may still be doing research, especially early in their career as a lecturer, but the position itself is 100% teaching. Some lecturers are full-time and long-term, in which case they can be as useful as the tenured professors for knowing about campus programs. But others are hired part-time or on a semester-to-semester basis. In these cases, they may be perfectly good teachers, but they're less likely to be able to provide the other types of mentorship and information. There are also teachers called adjunct instructors who are hired by the university on a course-by-course basis. Again, they may be great teachers for their course, but their position is temporary and they often have to work at several different places to make enough to survive, so their ability to provide mentorship may be compromised. While all of these kinds of instructors can teach good or bad courses, there are other reasons why you'll want to identify who your professors are. Most importantly, if you're looking for the best letters of recommendation, letters from professors will tend to carry more weight with graduate programs and professional schools. Also, if you're looking to get into research, it's the professors who have the research labs. Unfortunately, these three categories of faculty can look the same at first glance. For example, former President Barack Obama is sometimes described as having been a professor of constitutional law, but he was really an adjunct instructor hired to teach a course on constitutional law. He was hired because he knew the topic well, but he didn't stick around the university for long, and if he hadn't become president, his letters of recommendation for law students in his classes would not have been as useful as those from real professors. The last two categories of instructors or teachers are other students. At universities and colleges with graduate programs, there are often teaching assistants who are graduate students employed by the university to teach. This is usually lab sections connected to a lecture taught by a professor, lecturer, or adjunct instructor, but on rare occasions, they get their own full courses. Peer tutors and other kinds of undergraduate instructors, like supplemental instruction instructors, are advanced undergraduates with a teaching position. Again, these individuals may be great, or not great, at teaching, but they are more short-term and have much less experience and authority on campus. Although they may be good role models and may know useful things about the campus and degree, you would generally not want to get your letters of recommendation from them. Being aware of these categories can also be useful to keep you from making a faux pas when talking with someone. It's not totally fair, but if you clearly mistake one of these types of people for another when talking with them, you'll seem like an amateur. And if you mistake a young professor for a teaching assistant, you run the risk of offending someone who could otherwise be very useful down the road. I mentioned scholarships earlier, but I wanted to mention this again. One important thing that many people don't know is that there are often very few applicants or nominees for scholarships and awards. I've been on awards committees in which there were more awards available than students who applied. Literally, we just gave every applicant an award because there wasn't anything else we could do. Obviously, this isn't true all the time, but your chances may be better than you realize even if your record isn't super strong, especially if you found a scholarship that isn't widely known. Most universities have a dedicated scholarship office that can give you information about campus programs. You can also search online for awards at your university and other nationwide awards and specialty scholarships. There are lots of programs out there for specialized groups like people with certain ethnicities, particular last names, specialized academic fields, geographic locations, and a bunch of other categories. The idea here is to be proactive and seek out these yourself because most students don't. In addition to getting the money, having these awards on your resume will show potential employers or post-bac programs that you're the kind of person that is a go-getter and motivated to do more than the minimum. That's exactly the type of person these employers and programs are looking for. The truth is that the world is full of college graduates with the same degree as yours. You'll want to have extra things in your resume that set you apart. Speaking of resumes, you'll want to think about how to get specific items you can add. As I mentioned before, the world is full of people with biology degrees, and you'll want something extra to make you stand out when applying for the next thing you do. One thing you can do is to be strategic with your general education courses. Most people just think of this as a checklist, but another approach is to scope out what non-science courses or areas post-bac programs or employers value and choose your general education courses to hit those. There are also tons of extra qualifications and skills you can obtain. Many places have certification programs in phlebotomy, first aid, or CPR. Becoming an EMT is something I've seen several students do prior to getting into medical school. If you want to be a vet, getting a vet tech certification can be useful. These last two also qualify you for a more career-appropriate job while you're a student. Other skills can add value to your record. If you plan to do field work or ecological work, then learning how to drive a stick-shift car, set snares, or shoot a firearm can be useful. Getting into a research lab is something most biology students don't do, so if you can arrange this, you'll stand out. Most Americans are monolingual, so if you can speak another language, that also sets you apart in a good way. These days, there are also a variety of companies that offer online certifications. I would caution against the idea that these certifications are worth a lot and can get you a job on their own, but they are worth something. They can help you develop skills, and they show that you're the kind of person who does more than the minimum. Volunteer work is sometimes useful and important too, and required for medical school applications, for example. But the best additional activities are ones that result in concrete statements about skills or certifications you can put on a resume. Another thing to keep in mind is that while a biology degree is commonly used to get into a variety of professional schools, There are also specific course requirements that many programs have that may or may not be covered by the biology major at your institution. For example, a course in human anatomy is required by most physician's assistant, physical therapy, nursing, and optometry programs, but is not a required part of a biology major in many places. Here at my university, I often recommend this as an extra course that my advisees should take alongside the requirements for the biology major. This chart shows the most common biology type courses that are required by a variety of professional schools that many biology majors go to. The major at your institution may require some of these, but it's unlikely that it requires all of them. If you have plans for a specific professional school after the biology degree, you should find out which courses those programs want and make sure you take them. Also, these post-bac programs vary, and some may or may not have the same requirements as others. You should take a look at the programs at all the schools you're interested in and identify their requirements and recommended courses. These can include biology type courses not on this list and even non-biology courses. For example, there's at least one dental school in my region that strongly recommends 8 credits of English for some reason. This is another situation where being strategic with the courses you take for your school's general education requirement can be useful. Some programs, medical school for example, also require that you obtain some hours shadowing a professional in the field. Your school may have a program to facilitate this, but most of the time the initial contact is done informally by the student. One of my students was able to arrange her doctor shadowing by contacting the person she was interested in through Instagram, for example. If you're looking at graduate school, a master's degree or PhD, then getting research experience in a lab is practically required. Your research mentor will provide the kind of letter of recommendation you need, and the experience will help you learn whether graduate school is for you. Getting into a research lab is not like signing up for a regular course. You must be proactive and approach a faculty member or one of their graduate students and ask about the research they do. Their scheduled office hours are a great time to do this. Faculty often love to talk about their research because it's their passion, so don't worry about bothering them. Every faculty member will have a different procedure for interviewing and accepting students. If you have bad luck with the first one, don't give up, try another one. The research you do as an undergraduate also does not have to be exactly what you do for your graduate studies. As an undergraduate, the main benefit to doing research is to learn how it is performed. For example, I don't use molecular techniques in my lab, but plenty of my former students have gone on to graduate programs where they did do molecular work. Graduate programs value the research experience itself more than the details of what you did. That being said, if you really know what you want to do, finding a lab that matches that topic or uses those methods is the right approach. If your school doesn't have research labs, there are some other avenues you can try. Each summer, there are a number of REU, Research Experience for Undergraduates, programs funded by the NSF, National Science Foundation, at universities across the country. There are even some international programs. These are competitive, but extremely rewarding in terms of providing experience. They also usually provide housing and pay a stipend that's as much as a summer job would earn you. You don't have to worry about the cost. Other government agencies like the Environmental Protection Agency and the National Institutes of Health run similar programs. There's also an organization called the National Research Mentoring Network you can join that will help match you up with a mentor who can help you find a research opportunity. I've included links to these programs and others in the video description below. Local hospitals, government agencies, and companies may offer internships and research opportunities as well. It's worth it to take some time to search around and see if the perfect opportunity is in your own backyard. In addition to getting a fantastic scientific experience, the best recommendation letters for graduate programs and professional schools come from your mentors in programs like these. Now for something that tends to send shivers down spines, standardized tests. It's changing a bit now, but most graduate schools and professional schools still use scores on standardized tests as a part of their evaluation of applicants. They use other factors too, but why make it harder on yourself by doing poorly on one aspect of your overall application package? The MCAT, PCAT, OAT, and DAT are used by medical schools, pharmacy schools, optometry schools, and dental schools. The GRE is used by many graduate and veterinary medicine programs. The GMAT and LSAT are used by business and law schools. I include the CBEST here since that's the test used by California schools as part of their process to hire teachers. This isn't an exhaustive list. There are plenty of other tests out there. The best time to start studying for these tests is now. With years of practice, the test will be much easier than rushing and learning about the format and quirks at the last minute. An analogy I often use is this. If you knew that your ability to get a job would be determined by your accuracy in a basketball free throw contest, which is better, practicing for the entire 4 years you're a student, or rushing to learn how to shoot free throws in one summer? In fact, much of the benefit from test prep programs and books comes from learning about how to take multiple choice exams in general. Learning these techniques right away will help with your biology courses that have multiple choice questions while you're a student. People sometimes ask me about whether test prep programs are worth the money, and it depends. The main benefit from test prep programs comes from the schedule they provide, not the information itself, since that's in the books those same companies sell. Studying the books carefully can be just as good. but only if you're organized and motivated to consistently spend those hours every week. If you need the structure and some external accountability, that's when a test prep program can be worth it. In general, as we've seen for standardized tests, research experience, and resume building, you want to start planning for your future early. Scope out the courses taught at your university. Find out who the superstar professors and lecturers are. Spend time researching all the careers that are out there. Maybe you'll discover something you never thought of. Once you hear about it, you'll realize it's the one for you. Start early with making the relationships that can lead to strong letters of recommendation. As an example, when I write letters for students in my research lab, I can write in detail about their work ethic, reliability, and ability to work with others. I can talk about the responsibilities I gave them in my lab. When a student who just took one of my courses asks for a letter, all I can really say is what grade they got, and that's a vastly inferior kind of letter. The clock to develop yourself and your connections doesn't start when you graduate, it starts before you graduate. Not waiting is so important that it's worth reiterating. Don't wait too long to get assistance or start doing the things you need to do. Grade point averages are weighted averages of your grades and the credits you've taken. Once you have a lot of credits, it becomes very hard to change your GPA. For example, if your GPA after taking half your credits is a 2.8, then even if you got a 4.0 in all the rest of your courses, you would only get it up to a 3.4 by the time you graduate. These days, many universities have caps on the number of courses and units you can take, so even if you wanted to stay longer to get more credits once you start getting higher grades, it may not be allowed. This works for switching majors too. Once you have a lot of units in one major, it becomes almost impossible to get permission to switch. It's not just the GPA either. Advanced activities, leadership for example, come with time. Nobody starts off good at anything, but everyone can become good once they put in the hours. Not waiting is also important for research and internships because faculty members and companies will often prefer students who have time remaining instead of those about to graduate. For myself, for example, I teach a lower-level stats course for biology sophomores and an upper-level evolutionary biology course for juniors and seniors. Even though the upper-level course is closer to the focus of the research in my lab, I find most of the students from my lab in the stats course. That's because if someone is about to graduate, they're much less appealing than someone who will stay around and keep doing research after that first semester when they're just learning the basic protocols that I use in my lab. One thing to keep in mind, and another reason to start thinking about things early, is that our plans can change. People often tell us to hold on to our dreams, which can be good or it can be bad. Dreams provide inspiration, which is good, but they can also create blinders that make us ignore other possibilities. And there are lots of possibilities out there. For example, I once had a student join my research lab, and when I talked to her about her plans, she said she wanted to be a dentist. When I asked her why, she said she shadowed one for one day. She hadn't really thought past that. She ended up doing a research project in my lab with another student, and the three of us published a scientific paper together. She did another project where she managed several other students, and she did an REU at Notre Dame one summer. She discovered that she loved research and molecular genetics. After graduating, she went on to a PhD program and a course of study that she loves that she would have missed if she had kept the poorly thought out goal of dentist forever. Not that being a dentist is bad, but it's just one of many options out there. Sometimes we know exactly what we want, but when you start college, you're also just getting introduced to all the aspects of biology. You can change your dreams as you gain information and experience. Think about how naive you've been in the past about things that are now important to you. Decisions you should have made back then if you had just thought about things a little bit more. Your present is your future's past, so it's worth it to think about whether there are some things that you might want to change now. Even if you have a specific goal in mind now, keep an open mind just in case the perfect new dream comes along that you never thought of. Redirecting your goals based on analyzing exactly what it is you value and enjoy is not failing, it's the opposite. It's succeeding in terms of becoming your true self. I see this a lot with students who have a dream of medical school, but that's often because doctors are the most visible type of biology career on TV. There's so much out there that can offer many of the same benefits of being a medical doctor, but without the huge medical school debt or the need to move away from family. Lastly, have no fear, because fear leads us into bad decisions. I know that thinking about the future can be daunting, but it doesn't need to be. Think back to junior high. How intimidating did high school seem? And in high school, how intimidating did college seem? And once you got to high school or got to college, you realized that it's not that scary. It was just the next step. And it's not just the next step, it's a new beginning. Nobody cares about where you went to school before college. Honestly, however bad your school was or how badly you did back then, it doesn't matter. It's your university name that will go on your resume and your university GPA that will go in your graduate and professional school applications. It's also very common to feel that you're an imposter in college. Everyone else seems like they have their plans in place. They probably seem so much more sure of themselves and their plans. Trust me, they aren't. On the other hand, don't get overconfident. Things won't come easy. You want to find your balance between these two things. You've already done the right thing by watching this video. Getting advice and information is exactly what you want to do. No one source has everything, however. Even this video should only be one small piece of your mission to get information. I hope you found the advice here useful. It comes from years of working with students just like you. By the way, a high-res version of the set of slides shown here on the screen is available using a link in the video description below. Feel free to like and subscribe, but please also share this with your friends and fellow students who you think may benefit from the advice. Also, if you have some advice or information of your own, please write a comment below to let us all know. Thanks for watching, and good luck.